Any second now. Yep, we are live. Fantastic. So we have got a brilliant show coming up tonight because I know some of Yousef's stuff. So we've got a fantastic guest. Tonight with me, I have Yousef, who is a former US Marine. And he teaches currently situational awareness training courses, which are absolutely brilliant. I know a few people in the past have asked me about situational awareness, and I said I'm going to recommend somebody or get somebody on. Well, this is the man. Yousef, welcome to the show. How are you doing?
Gavin, thanks so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here, especially with you at the top of the list of body language experts out there in the world. So it's really a great honor to be on here, and we'll kick some good information for this show.
Oh, thank you. I've been sending number 9s everywhere, all over the place.
Good man.
Yes, brilliant. I've got to give a quick shout out to a friend called Storm, who I dropped her some books off earlier tonight. She's in bed with a shattered kneecap after an accident, so I promised her I'd give her a shout out and say hello. So hi, Storm. Hope everything's going well for you. And yeah, without further ado, as the audience starts to build up, let's get on with this because I know I've seen some of your videos and your lessons and that kind of thing. It was a few years ago when you were first starting this out, so it's probably been updated a little bit since then. But I'd like you, if that's all right, Yousef, to tell a little bit about your backstory and how you ended up getting into this, if that's okay.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. It's kind of a funny story too. It's an interesting one to say the least. So, everyone always asks me about my name. Yes, I am an Arab. I'm from Kuwait originally, and probably one of the only Kuwaiti Marines, United States Marines, you'll probably ever meet. I joined the Marine Corps in 2002, right when the Iraq invasion was kicking off, and I was part of the invasion. I did 2 more subsequent deployments back to back as an infantryman, but I also spoke Arabic. So everyone can do the math on that one. Old Uncle Sam got his 10 pounds of flesh out of me. I was in double duty over there. But it was very interesting. It was crazy times, but it was very interesting. Learned a lot of life experience, and I went to get out. I'd done my time. I did 4 years in the Marine Corps, done 3 deployments, and I got out in 2006, and I was living in California with my wife. She was my wife at the time. And long story short, she calls me at work one day and she says, "You need to come home. The Marine Corps has sent you something." And again, I've been out for about 1.5 years now, civilian. Wow. And I go, "Well, yeah, it's probably just whatever leftover paperwork. It's nothing. It's not a big deal." And she goes, "You need to come home. The Marine Corps sent you a FedEx." And I'm trying to calm her down and whatnot. I'm like, "Oh, it's nothing. Don't worry about it." And she's like, "Get here now. There's a ticket. There's a boarding ticket to a plane ride on it." And I'm like, "They sent me a ticket?" And she goes, "Yes." And I come back, and I had been involuntarily recalled back into the Marine Corps.
Wow.
Which is, a little known thing. Once you sign up for the Marine Corps, let's say you join for 4 years, you actually join up for 8 years, 4 years of active duty, and then 4 years of inactive reserve, which no one ever they haven't done a recall since Desert Storm. So got back into the Marine Corps. It was kind of one of the better things that happened. I kind of missed it. And I happened to land in a really cool program called Combat Hunter. For your listeners, they should go check it out. And basically, it's all the skills that we would have wanted on deployment: how to build situational awareness, how to analyze behavior, because what we had to do is we were really good at reacting. Obviously, Marines, we're really good at reacting to those emergency situations and doing what needs to be done. And that's kind of our bread and butter. But we were dealing with such an elusive enemy out there taking casualties. We had to get smarter. We were kind of being hunted on the battlefield out there. So we wanted to be the hunters. So General Mattis established a Combat Hunter program where we would use science-based behaviors and fear responses to teach people situational awareness, how to disrupt threats before they happen, before the bomb goes off, before the shooting happens. This is what we want to do. So that's kind of led to me, and I was there at the program for about 10 years, and then I left and started my own business, applying it to our communities, our houses of worship, the military again, organizations. It has obviously military applications in the security realm, but understanding behavior analysis and situational awareness and how to disrupt threats just is so important to our everyday communities out there, especially with active shooters and whatnot. So that kind of brings us up to date. That's the shotgun version of the background.
Yeah, that's I love the way you crammed that in there. That was wonderful, because I know, yeah, the full story. There's a lot more depth to it. That much I do know. Can you tell us a little bit about Juba Sniper?
Sure, absolutely. The Juba sniper, if you've never heard of it before, when I mentioned the elusive enemy, that was the enemy we were fighting out there.
Hmm.
And it was a sniper operating in the Sunni Triangle, basically, and he was causing a lot of casualties. And we didn't know how to fight him. We did not know how to fight this sniper because we were looking for, the IEDs, the ambushers, whatever it is. But when a sniper takes a single well aimed shot, you might be on patrol, you might be standing there on a post with your buddy. He goes down. That's it. There's no follow on ambush. There's no
Hmm.
IED. There's nothing to attack. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? I said
Yeah.
Marines were really good at reacting and close with and destroy the enemy and all that good stuff, but it was like fighting a ghost.
Hmm.
So the Juba sniper in those incidents was the impetus of the Combat Hunter program. General Mattis said, you know what, we're not the hunted, we're the hunters. And that's what started everything off. All up the way, we were dealing with this sniper all the way up to a point until an awesome American by the name of AJ Prosciutti took a shot. He was a sniper himself, a Marine sniper. He took the shot and he killed the Juba sniper. And when they
Hmm.
went down there to kind of investigate things, that's when it broke the mold. That's when we figured out, oh my God, this is how he was operating. Because we were looking for snipers, up and out on top of a building, like
Yeah.
Saving Private Ryan, clock
That's it.
towers.
The traditional kind of setup.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's not wrong, technically. Obviously,
Hmm.
there are snipers that do that, but it's incomplete. We didn't
Hmm.
have a file folder for this type of tactic. But once we figured it out, we were able to take it apart and bust it up. And the really interesting part is that at the end of the day, everyone, the enemy was putting out propaganda about the Juba sniper. Here's his kill count. Here's the videos, all this stuff.
Mm.
Well, at the end of the day, what we found out was Juba sniper wasn't just one sniper. It was
That's right. Yeah.
multiple cells of snipers operating
Hmm.
like they were just one person. So what was a weakness to us once we figured out the MO turned into a weakness for them and we were able to take apart those cells. But that
Hmm.
whole story of the Juba sniper, everything there was the impetus of the behavior analysis and the situational awareness training.
Yeah, I absolutely love that story, and I remember, like, kind of, at the time hearing about this Juba sniper and all the videos that were getting released, and thinking, wow, what, how the hell did somebody get this good, and of course, like you say, it was because of the fact that it was several all operating, as one person kind of thing. So, what I'm going to do now, I'm going to mention this because there are some people out there, and you'll say to them, like, look, you need to build your situational awareness, and they'll roll their eyes and go, yeah, situational awareness, I've heard it all before, sit at the back, watch the doors, and you go, yeah, no, it's not quite that simple.
A
There's a
little
bit
bit more
more to it.
complex.
Yeah. And it's I think it's one of those things where most people, they're at the top of Dunning-Kruger's first peak with this one. I think they're kind of, everybody thinks they're good at situational awareness until something takes them by surprise, and then all of a sudden they go, wow. So what I'd like to do, I'd like to, like, kind of, I don't know whether you do anything like this, but if we make up a scenario, you're taking your family, say, to a restaurant. I know that most people will turn around and say, yes, I sit at the back, I watch the exits. What else? Because I know, like I said, there's more to this. What else would you give them in the way of, like, kind of tips and hints here? I know my training, but I want to see, like, kind of, I know you've got
Absolutely.
more. So, what would you give them to say, like, these are things that you should or could be doing to improve the chances of survival in the event of active shooter, explosion, blah blah blah.
For sure. So let's go with that analogy or that scenario where you're taking your family to a restaurant. You want to be situationally aware. If one, I'll tell you this: if the
Hmm.
people who are your audience are saying, "Yeah, I'm going to be situationally aware. I'm going to station myself in the back, my back of the door," you're already like 90% farther than the rest of the population out there. So
Yeah.
that's a good thumbs up. But where people get tripped up, not really tripped up, but you can get into problems, is they start being situationally aware when they get their family into that restaurant or into that setting.
Mhm.
When you can start establishing situational awareness before you ever even leave your house. How do you
Mhm.
do that? Is so, for example, you establish baselines and look for anomalies. So if I'm taking my family to a restaurant, let's say that restaurant's in a mall, and I've probably been to the mall before, I can mentally start running through baselines in my head. Things
Mhm.
like, all right, well, how should people be acting in this restaurant in the mall? Should they be, overly, is there over attention on myself, or should they focus on what they're doing? People should be focusing on what they're doing. What about, are they acting dominant with their chest puffed out, or are they more neutral, kind of hanging out? Probably more neutral. So you can start establishing baselines about the structure, the people, how they should be acting once you get there, before you even get there. Now you spun up kind of an idea, and you can even start going, all right, if something happens, but when we get there, I can do this. I can grab my family. I can head towards an exit. I know where the exits are. So you're already greasing the skids of your, decision making before you even stepped into the scene.
Yeah.
So now that we've stepped into the scene, we already have kind of a mental, we've kind of greased the wheels, we have some decision making. Now we can start observing and thinking about that baseline we've established and looking at our observations and putting them against our baseline. Do they match? Are people, doing their thing, going about their business? Or when I walked in the restaurant, let's say you've ever been to a restaurant where, you walk in the door and the bell dings, you've been to those, Gavin? So let's say you walked into one of those. What do people do? They hear a noise. We're kind of tuned to look at that. So everyone would probably turn, look at you, make eye contact and whatnot. But most everyone should go back to doing what they're doing. They saw you, they go back to eating or ordering, whatever it is. But let's say hypothetically you walk in and everybody sees you, they go back to doing what they're doing, except one or two individuals, they continue looking at you. It's lingered kind of attention. It's like, is that a direct threat just yet? No. But if I have to pay attention to anybody in this room, it's these people who have lingering attention on me.
Yeah.
So, but that's basically the highlight. Is it's more complex than that, but establishing behavioral baselines for the places you're going to be. And then once you have that baseline, hunting for anomalies, looking for things that don't match that baseline. This does not fit. So, those anomalies might not necessarily be a direct threat. They can be someone pulling a gun or someone trying to attack you. But again, we're just looking for behaviors that don't match the baseline of the setting or the place you're in.
Yeah. No, I do a little bit of, I play games with my daughter, situational awareness games with my daughter. We do things like the silly plate game, where we take the last, so I do this thing where we're sitting in the car, and she has to preferably use the mirrors or something without rubbernecking. She has to try and get the last three letters off the plate, the license plate of the vehicle behind us, and she has to make a silly word out of it. And of course, we've had some giggles doing it and whatever else. And then what we do then, we'll go about our day. Now, every time the car changes, whoever spots it first and makes the word up first gets a point. Now,
that's awesome.
Yeah. Now, what we do is if you see the same vehicle twice in two different kind of locations or something, then you win that round. If you see the vehicle three times in three different locations, then you've just won the entire game, and that's generally a cue for me to put my foot down. So we do this, and what it does, it helps to build her kind of observational skills up. I think it's brilliant for that kind of thing. We do other things when we go into restaurants as well. I'll ask her, where does Daddy want to sit? And she's brilliant. She picks out the one, to say, oh, you're going to want to sit there because you can see the doors, you can see the exits, you can see what's going on, you can see the whole room, that kind of thing. And what I've started doing more recently is when we go into, whether it's a restaurant, a bar, whatever, she's picked the seat, she's got that bit right. And I'll say, right, in the event of a threat, if there's a problem, no matter what it is, knife man, gun man, just drunken, whatever, where are we going to go? Which exit are we going to use? And this is really, really important, because a lot of people miss this so many times, because they will turn around and say, oh, you go through the closest exit. Well, it might not necessarily be the closest exit if that's where everybody else is going.
Yes.
But more importantly than that is the fact that, what if you don't know what's the other side of that exit? So you've got this whole thing, you might be by an exit, but then you get out to find you're in a square yard that's got 9-foot walls with razor wire above it, and you've now gone from being in a room with several exits to trapped in a little courtyard with one way, and that's back in. You might have just made things worse. So you're not just looking for exits, but you're looking for exits that you preferably know what's the other side, or for a fact you can get out. So sometimes I'll do a walk around and I'll say, right, we can come out. I've checked this exit. It's just an alley down the side, and we can go left or right when we come out. And that's missed on. I'm sure you've been through this kind of thing countless times with people.
Well, Gavin, I want to highlight three things for your audience to listen to, because you nailed it 1,000%. What you're doing with your daughter is fantastic, but there's some upper level strategy happening too. So number one, you're playing those games where, hey, you're using mirrors and reflections to try to pick up license plate numbers. So that's teaching, especially with kids. You don't want to scare kids. You want to
make it fun.
Yeah, make it fun. You want them to maintain their innocence. But what you're doing is you're developing their ability to observe for details and look where
Exactly.
things don't, make sense or add up. So that's one skill that is fantastic. You're doing, all your readers out there should be doing it. I can give some examples. So that's one you're doing. The second part about what you're doing is you made that word game. You've got to come up with a silly word. Now you're getting into mnemonics. That's
Hmm.
fantastic. When you we did it in the military all the time. We call them ditties, or acronyms, where
Yeah,
you had to remember something. It's like, all right, my cow jumped over the big moon, blah, blah. It's something silly,
yeah,
but you
because it
remember it.
works. Hmm.
It's so, yeah, it works. It makes you, reminds you of what you were looking at, but it's so silly that it sounds kind of dumb, but you'll
Hmm.
laugh and remember it. So that's number two. That's fantastic what you're doing with the kids, and all your listeners should be playing similar games.
Hmm.
And the third one, when you talked about when you walk into an area and you ask your daughter, where does dad want to sit? That's a fantastic teaching way, because what you're doing, you're not spoon feeding her.
Hmm.
You're not walking her in. Maybe the first few times you would do it, hey, I'm going to sit over here and this is why, A, B, C, and D. But now, after a couple times of doing that, you have to tell me where I'm going to sit. You're
Hmm.
causing her to think, to be cognitive
Mm.
about what she's doing and really understand the concept. She has to kind of make some decisions. So, very awesome high level things you're doing. It might seem simple, but your daughter's probably going to be the next MI5, MI6 agent of
She,
the year.
if she decides to go that way, she'll be one hell of an operative,
Yeah,
that's
she
for sure.
will.
So,
Yeah.
and there is another thing that I'm started doing more recently with her, because environments and locations are one thing, vehicles are another thing. The recent game I've started doing, this come from a CIA training. Well, it come from a friend of mine who said, look, there's something else, another game you can play and what that is. Instead of using vehicles and locations, we're looking at people, and what we're doing now is we have to say, right, guess the mood. What kind of mood is that
Mhm.
person in? Are they happy? Are they sad? Are they angry? Are they, what do you think they're going to say if you stand in their way? Or do you think that, and so, and again, it can be fun. There's no need to frighten the life out of the kids. You just turn it, oh, he looks
Absolutely.
angry. He looks sad. He looks like he's having a bad day. He looks, happy and like he wants to celebrate. And you turn these things into fun, because what's happening is, again, she's learning to kind of read the room, even if she's out in the streets or out in the city. She's learning to look at the crowds, the people, the faces, the moods, and figure out what's going on and what the dynamic is, and that in itself is something that again, I want to turn it into this fun game that she enjoys it. So as it goes in, is long-term memory and novelty stored in the same part of the brain, so it helps to kind of get it cemented in there. And I know that you have a bit of a system when it comes to kind of reading crowds as well. So, individuals is one thing, but can you tell us about your system for when it comes to reading like large numbers and large crowds? Because you have to be methodical with these things, don't you?
Yes, you're very methodical, and the first thing you want to think about is, immediate safety. So what I tell people is, before we start doing any whiz bang behavior profiling or any of that stuff, one, you want to make sure you have distances between people. Don't let people in your bubble that they can put their hands on you faster than you can react. If you're
Mhm.
standing in front of me and we're kind of close to each other, if you do some type of movement, you go to slap me or hit me or anything, my brain, this is scientific fact, and I don't care how hardcore you are, you need at least a quarter a second for my brain to see that, for my brain to fire to my synapse, for my arm to go up and block it. So if my
Mm.
attacker can come in under a quarter second, and that happens because we're too close, I can't do anything. I will not be
Mhm.
able to defend myself in time with whatever, it's a knife. So we want to make sure, create some distance when we can. And two, we're going to clear the hands, right? Again, before we do any whiz bang, behavior assessment, we're clearing hands first. Hands are the
Mhm.
weapons of the body. Hands will hold the knife, the gun, they will kill you. So once we've established those two, now we can start looking at whether it's individual behavior or crowd behavior. Now we can kind of break it down in buckets. So that's
Mhm.
how I do it. In an individual, you want to look at kinesics and kind of the individual nonverbal behavior. For groups, you want to look more on proxemics. What are
Mhm.
people's relationship with each other? Uh, this changes culturally and country by country, state by state. But how close do we keep each other? Is this person in my intimate zone? Are they in the personal zone? Are they in the public zone? And what you want to do is look for violations of someone's personal space. So if you're dealing with a crowd and you see someone come in and they get into someone's personal, let's say half a foot, and there's a reaction from that other person, you can understand that, hey, maybe that person's not comfortable. They don't know that person. But vice versa, if you're watching an area and you see that person get close to a group or people, they get in their personal zone and there's no reaction, there's no distance making, you can safely say that person's very comfortable with that person. So now you can start assessing relationships. I actually use a picture right next to the Thames River in London where it's, 300 people walking around. And after I go through the whole kind of group analysis portion, I go, all right, quickly, tell me who knows who. Probably after 15 minutes of instruction, they can look at that picture and go, they know each other. They're holding hands. They're right on top of each other. They're picking people out in the crowd, establishing relationships. And what's cool is, again, this will change culture to culture, but you can observe these group dynamics happening. And people are really weird in groups. We don't like closeness. Human beings in general don't like closeness. It's crazy when you look at law enforcement response. If they ever have a riot, they have there's a different techniques to kind of get the riot to disperse, but one of them is called a bow and arrow. So you have your line of police and you have the angry riders. They're all on top of each other. And what they'll do is they'll shoot a whole line of cops with their shields and their batons right through the middle of that big group of people. And what that does is it cuts it in half. And then they'll do it again. They'll go the other way and they'll cut that in half. So now it's in 4 sections. And what you see this group and this riot start doing is all of a sudden people start calming down, because when you put them on top of each other, everyone's amped up and mad and they don't even know why they're angry. But you give them a little bit more space and all of a sudden things start to calm down. People start throwing things. So lots of good group dynamic things you can look for, but proxemics, the study of spatial distance, that's a best place to start right there.
Oh, definitely. And in order of kind of, if you're approaching a crowd and you're scanning a crowd, so you can break it into chunks if you want to, but for me, generally, I'll start with the nearest first, and I'll start with the very, very front row of people. Before I've even looked. I'm not going 5 deep. I'm not going 10 deep. I'm looking at the very front row before I get any closer, and then move my way backwards and upwards and outwards, as it were. And because at the end of the day, the closer they are to me, the more they are a threat to me. So,
And to start, we kind of started with understanding group dynamics or analyzing group behavior. You got to start at understanding individual behavior first. That's where you build the file folder. So if I know that when the brain has a fear response, it dumps a bunch of chemicals, things can happen like reddening of the face, or the opposite, blanching. If someone goes white, that's a very high level stress response. That means your brain is so afraid right now that it's starting to pool blood in your midsection. So by understanding that individual behavior, I could start scanning, like you said, that first line of crowd nearest to me, or even in the crowd. Let's say, maybe it's just a protest. Protest can be friendly, and you're watching everyone's behavior. It's generally, jovial. People are smiling, but you have that one individual in the group or group of individuals who are red in the face. Again, I can't say 100% that they're a direct threat. But of all these people in this area, this group of people
are the ones that got your attention.
Focus on. So understanding that individual behavior can help you key you on that group dynamic.
Oh, definitely. And what I'm going to do here, I'm going to address something else as well, because we tend to talk about situational awareness when we're looking at restaurants or malls or crowds and that kind of thing. And what a lot of people don't realize is that some of the times when you are most vulnerable is when you are doing something you've done so many times before. When something's become routine, you've slipped into that comfort zone. And I know this from experience. One thing that happens, and I see it time and time again, is you'll have a parent open the back door of a car, and they'll put the baby seat in the back seat of the car, and then they'll be their head in, and they'll be clipping the seatbelt in place, and they don't realize how vulnerable they are. They've got their back to the world. Their peripheral vision is lost because their head's in the car. Their hearing is dampened because their head's in the car, and they're listening for and feeling for the clicks. Their brain is otherwise engaged. They've got no idea what's going on around them, and that is the point of it's so vulnerable. And this could be coming out of the shopping mall and putting your bags and everything in the car. So it's. You have to look at the point of, you have to look at situational awareness as not just being, I'm going to go to a restaurant, so I'm going to be prepared to run if it comes to it. You have to look at the points of, when are you vulnerable? When are you not paying attention? When are you distracted? And how do you strengthen those and make that easier to happen? So when I like kind of used to put my child in the car seat, I'd open the door and put her in, close the door, go around the other side, open the other door and close it behind me, and do it from inside the car. Yeah, it sounds like a faff, but it could end up saving both mine and her life,
That
So
you're talking about a situation where you have your most prized possession, your child, your
exactly,
baby
yeah.
with you, and if you follow Cooper's color codes, you're in the public with your child, and when you're bent over not paying attention, you're in condition white.
Oh,
You
all
have
day long, yeah.
zero awareness of what's going on with one of your most prized possessions. And to take your analogy even further, Gavin, it's when people are home.
Yeah, yeah.
People will be situationally aware when they get in their car, when they go out in town. Well, if they are, most of the population isn't. But when they pull back into the driveway and they get in the house, that's when we go to condition white. You should
Yeah, yeah.
very, very rarely ever be that unaware, because what happens is if an intruder does pop up, I'll give you an example. This happened to me a couple of days ago. We had a good laugh over it. I'm at my house here in California, and my father-in-law was here, and I didn't realize this, but he went to go take the trash out. So where the trash cans are on the side of the house, and so it's basically a closed off gated back alley of this house. Okay, no one's supposed to be there. It kind of leads to the backyard, and I see this shadow. All I see is a figure moving, and
Oh, well.
and I'm sitting there watching TV. We were watching TV after dinner, and I see the shadow moving. Instantly, I'm up. My heart's racing, and I caught myself. I was absolutely in condition white. It happens sometimes.
Yeah, yeah.
And I had a good laugh because I stood right up, and my wife could see I had a reaction of it. And it took me, even after I recognized his face, it took me 2 or 3 seconds to go, okay, that's Eric. That's not a threat. And because I was in that condition white, I had this whiplash effect that took me in the other end into condition black, and I wasn't as prepared as I can be. So that was an eye opener for Mr. Situational Awareness guy over here. So it can happen. You can fall into that, but especially if you're in situations where you're dealing with kids or it's important, do like you did. Break it into stages. It's like put them in, buckle, take a peek. Shift them, take a peek, or do what you did, get in and close the door. At least you have a barrier now to create a little bit of time and distance. So
Exactly, yeah. Yeah, and of course, with what you were saying there about getting home, it's almost like there's a gauge of your awareness, and the closer you get to home, the gauge drops of your awareness gauge. And it starts from like you're in your town, and it drops a little bit. You're in your street, it drops a lot more. You're pulling onto your drive, it drops even more. You get into your front door, it's almost at zero. And this is how this kind of familiarity of your environment. And I've seen this happen even to experienced operatives. They'll get into a new hotel, they'll go to a foreign country, they'll get into a new hotel, they'll get into their room, and they'll check everything, every drawer, every cupboard, the bathroom, the lot, and everything else. The first time they're ever in there, that's it, and then it's done. And then the next time they come into their hotel room, they'll open the door, plonk themselves on the bed, and they'll be hang on a minute. And the thing is, it has been proven, there has been studies that prove that your awareness can decrease as much as 70% after only being somewhere once where you are where there's not been a threat or any kind of anything to so you go through this conditioning. You've been somewhere once, it was safe, so therefore the next time you go, your brain relates it to being safe, and subconsciously you think, it was all right last time, so more than likely going to be all right this time. So and of course this pattern continues, and that's when you kind of your awareness drops phenomenally. So I say this again to everybody: if they go to a regular shop or a regular venue, it might be somewhere you walk to work, for example. You walk through the door, and every day you go into your office and you turn left. You don't even look right because you've done this 1,000 times before. Or sometimes on that one day that you don't look right, there could be any number of threats to that right. Always, no matter how many times you've done something, make yourself super aware of everybody who's in the room.
You nailed it, Gavin, and on a couple different levels too. Let's go back to Juba the sniper we mentioned. So his tactic, remember we were up looking out. If I said to your audience, hey, look for a sniper, where's everyone looking? We're looking up and out. And that's not where he was firing from. We could never find him because he was firing from the ground level, sometimes across the street from a vehicle. He'd pop down into the trunk, take that shot, and drive out of there, probably through one of our checkpoints. We're like, hey, get out of here, mister. There's a bad guy in the area. And what really made it really insidious was the vehicle he operated. Oftentimes it was a taxi. Okay.
Mm.
Why would you do that? Why would he take the shot from a taxi?
Yeah,
I
because it
call it
blends in.
I call it the Klingon cloaking device. You
Hmm.
took a $5 crappy taxi sign, put it on top, and
Hmm.
then every time anyone made an observation, you only have what you have in your brain where you've experienced. So if you're out there and you see a taxi go by, think of all the times you've ever seen a taxi in your life in the UK, in
Exactly.
America, wherever. Any of those times, has that taxi ever blown up? Has that taxi cab driver ever got out and shot you or shot you with a sniper rifle? It's never happened, right? So
Exactly.
why
Yeah.
would it happen this time? So
So you dismiss it.
you miss it, and it's very hard. So that's why I tell people with this curriculum and situational awareness, it's not rocket science, but it's also not common sense. If you don't
Hmm.
build these muscles by observing individual behavior, biometric responses, proxemic indicators, if you don't go through it consciously, you run into the trap you mentioned. Okay, cleared it once, and then every
Hmm.
time after that, I'm just going to plop in. This
Yeah.
goes
Yeah.
back to baselining. You have to,
Exactly.
just because you got a baseline of an aerial at Starbucks one time, that means
Hmm.
nothing. Because if you went on a Monday and now you're on a Wednesday, that could be a different baseline.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you always kind of cleanse your palate when you walk in, reestablish your baseline. Use your
Hmm.
observations that you've seen before. That's part of your baseline. But again, balance them off of what you're observing once you get to that thing. So very
Yeah.
good stuff.
Oh yeah, and I'd love to just add to that the fact that, I mean, taxi really is in my opinion what you would call urban camouflage.
Absolutely,
You know,
100%.
I mean, it
100%.
literally is. You've turned it into a chameleon vehicle, because you're never going to question, why is a taxi parked there. You
Hmm.
might question, why has that van been there all day and not
Hmm.
moved and nobody's in it. You might question, where's that vehicle come from? It's not from this area, or it's got different plates on. But a taxi, it is. It's like it's almost invisible. It just becomes camouflage in the background, because it just blends in, because you just look at it, you dismiss it, because there's no reason for a taxi not to be literally anywhere.
Anyway, throw a
Yeah,
Uber. The modern day equivalent is throw an Uber sign up there. Throw that lift,
yeah, yeah.
big pink lift, that big pink sign that says "I am not a threat." You'll conduct all sorts of criminality for it. And you think about that tactic, like, wow, where did the Juba get that from? That's a genius battlefield tactic.
Hmm.
Heck, if some of your listeners remember the DC sniper, that was years
Mm,
before this. We gave him that one. That one's on
yeah.
us. That's exactly how they were operating, causing terror on the East Coast. And the bad guys saw a tactic that worked, and they said, "Oh, look at that! We'll use that." And
Hmm.
we're not dealing with that specific threat of like a vehicle-borne sniper operation in anywhere right now. But
Mm.
100%, these bad people, these criminals, the terrorists, if they get a tactic that works, it's going on the shelf.
Oh
They might
yeah.
not need it right now, but it's going to come full circle one day, and you're going to see this tactic happen again. Sadly,
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
So
Yeah, I did the whole sniper thing. Actually, just brings to mind. I'd like you, if you're all right with it, sharing the story about what happened in Vegas, because I know you kind of inadvertently saved somebody's life there. Is that something you're happy to talk about publicly? With
yeah, sure. I'll talk about it. Yeah, I haven't talked about it in a long time. Kind of tugs at the heartstrings a little bit, but basically, the setting is the Las Vegas massacre. Where the shooter went up top in the hotel and MGM. I'm forgetting the hotel name, and he massacred
Mm,
all those people. What's wild is there were people on the ground that I knew, friends of mine. One was an LAPD officer and a reserve Marine who was just a stud, and he told me about that time. He was unarmed. You couldn't be armed when you walked into the venue. And this
mm,
this Marine was a stud. He was a Fallujah Marine. He fought in the Battle of Fallujah. He's also a reserve LAPD cop. So I mean, this guy's like Action Jackson. He's been there and done that. He said that shooting and that massacre was the worst thing he's ever seen in his life. He goes, Fallujah had nothing on that. He said it
wow.
was like the scene in Saving Private Ryan where the Higgins boats, where it's going down and they're getting machine gunned. He goes,
Hmm.
that's literally what I was looking at happen in front
Wow.
of him. So another person that I knew is a friend of mine took our training, and he was
Hmm.
helping me out with some training, and he had his daughter with him, and he's like, hey, I'm going to
Hmm.
bring my daughter to the training. She was young at the time. I think she was 17 maybe, and she kind of sat in the back. We figured she'd just be bored out of her mind, but she was listening. She was
Hmm.
listening down how to establish baselines and analyze behavior. And also, after she left my training, her dad would reiterate this stuff, just like you do, Gavin.
Yeah, yeah.
um, she was at that Las Vegas massacre with a group of her friends and her boyfriend. And one of the big things we go into is denial. One of the biggest killers out there is people falling into denial. Oh, that person's not doing that. Oh, they couldn't possibly be doing that. Bad place to be. The first volley of shots ring out, and she's there with her friends. She immediately has a fear response and goes, that's not normal. And she's not really trained in weaponry and anything, but she knows that doesn't belong. Her friends are trying to calm her down. They're saying, no, don't worry about it. It's just fireworks. And she tells herself, fireworks in the middle of the song, they're singing actively. And she's like, that doesn't add up. And that was enough information for her. It wasn't she saw a gunman. She said, you know what? A plus B plus C, that's enough for me. She grabbed her boyfriend and starts dragging him to the fence line. And he's trying to stop her. He's trying to calm her down, going, hey, it's not a big deal. That's when the second volley shots ring out and people start dying. And that's when everyone realizes it. And they're already over the fence line. So her father called me the next day after that and told me that. And he goes, you know, she's okay physically, but I just wanted to tell you because of this training, it's not me, it's this training, the curriculum, it gave her enough time to build in 5 seconds, 10 seconds to get out of there, and she survived. So that's the importance of learning how to analyze behavior and disrupt these threats before they happen. There's always going to be pre-event indicators.
Oh yeah.
And if I run you through my training and I throw 1,000 things at the wall, you know, it's not all going to stick. Maybe 50% sticks, but all you got to do is be right one time. You know, you think about a criminal or a terrorist who's out there doing their acts all the time. How often do they have to be right to not get caught? They got to be right every time. But a good person, all you got to do is spot one of these pre-event indicators, and you can disrupt these violent events from happening.
Yeah, and so I'm glad you're happy to talk about that, because it brought up the bit that I want to talk about, because all the situational awareness in the world is completely useless if you go into that phase of denial. And this is the next part that I just wanted to mention to a lot of people. You know, if you see somebody, and the amount of times I've seen CCTV footage of people sitting there with mouths open, staring, you know, in disbelief and whatever else, and they literally become a sitting target because of the fact that they see somebody and they go, he's got a gun, hang on, he's cocking the gun, hang on, he's aiming it, hang on, he's shooting, what's going on? He's not going to shoot us, is he? The minute you see something that doesn't add up, the minute you see him go to his holster, get out.
Yep.
Right?
Get going.
If you get out and it turns out he's getting a lighter out and he lights somebody's cigar or something like that, then fine.
You can
come back in. Yeah. Come back in and carry on with your meal and go, do you know what? I'm sorry. I was just being absolutely 100% secure and safe. And all right, you might be an idiot, but at least you're an idiot that's alive.
Yep.
I'd rather be an idiot that's alive than an idiot that's dead because I didn't make the decision to get out of there. So, actually, Brian has just put something on here, The Gift of Fear by Gavin De Becker. Have you ever read that book? Yeah. So,
recommend it to all my listeners.
Yeah, when you get those cues, if you see anything at all, you know, that get you thinking, you know, hang on, this isn't right, or something, you know, what's he going to do? Don't wait to find out what he's going to do. I see so many people do that, and like you've said before, they become reactive instead of proactive. You know, they're kind of like, oh yes, he is doing that bad thing. Oh, and now we're caught in it.
Catch up now. Yeah,
yeah, you're behind the curve. Yeah,
I run a training program that certifies safe instructors in these behavior domains, how to analyze behaviors and group dynamics and all this thing to be left to bang. And I have over 1,000 instructors all over the world, in the UK and America, all over the place. And I always get a laugh when they come at me with a case study. Something happened to them and they go, hey, let me tell you what happened. I was in Mexico. I was on vacation with my family. And they're telling the story and I'm getting jazzed. I'm like, yeah, and then what happened? And then what happened? Then I saw this, and then I saw this. And then what happened? And like they get to the punchline where it's about to, you know, go kinetic. And then they're like, well, then at that point, I grabbed my wife and I got the heck out of there. And so what happened? And they're like, I don't know. I left. And it's like, yeah, a good day in our world is a boring story where you have no idea what happened. The bad stories is when you find out. So if all you can do is make those observations, go, you know what? A plus B plus C, that's enough for me. I'm out of here. That's a good day.
Yeah, and if you've got the time and the inclination to go, there are certain police reports that you can get, and the sentence I've read again and again and again, I knew something was going to happen. you think, well, that was the point to get out.
Yeah. Your unconscious brain is like one of the the fastest processing computer out there. There's nothing that can come close to it. Your conscious brain, it's walking around all day thinking human things like, hey, when I'm hungry, I'm going to eat for lunch. What am I going to do this weekend? I'm going to go to the pub and hang out with my buddies. We're going to watch a game. You're planning things, all those things we do as human beings. Your unconscious brain is only worried about a couple things, freeze, flight, fight, basically. Yep. So it's walking around all day scanning. Hey, is this a threat? Do I have to run? Do I have to fight this thing? So when it picks up on those cues, over 1,000 years we've developed these skills, it starts giving you the bad gut feeling. It starts giving you the hair on the back of your neck. But the problem is where our conscious brain comes in and we start trying to explain it away. If you ever see something that has risen up on your Richter scale that you need to pay attention to, or you said the words, oh, that's funny, or that's weird, I wonder why that person just did that. Listen, it's not your job to explain away strange behavior. If anything, it's that other person's job, but it's definitely not yours.
Yeah.
So if you get enough indicators out there, don't fall into that denial trap. Your brain, it's a defense mechanism. It's a bad one that can get you killed, but it sees those, the gun come out and go, no way is that happening to me. There is no way that this guy just pulled out a gun. And, once the shooting begins, it's very hard to, overcome that train of events.
Yeah. And of course, our conscious brain, I like the way you said that, it can be our greatest enemy, because we are kind of sometimes trapped by social norms, as it were. And I mean, a friend of mine, like I say, he teaches a very similar kind of class to you. He's former CIA and that kind of thing. And he teaches this. And I remember him telling me the story of we are the only animal in the world that will consciously walk into a threat. And he uses his story about the elevator, and he says the elevator door opens and there is somebody in there. It might be a big griller, mean-looking guy, and whatever else, and people, women, men, whatever, they'll look and they go, oh, he looks dangerous. And what do? They walk into the elevator anyway, right? I mean, me, I'd pack my pockets and go, walk away, right? Make it look like you forgot your keys, your phone, whatever. And yet we're the only animal, because if you had a gazelle that was waiting by that elevator and those doors opened and there was a lion inside there, what do you reckon the chances of those gazelle getting into the elevator?
Literally, that's a great way to put it. We're the only ones that put ourselves in danger because of social norms. That's when I have about 50% of the ladies come and take my course. I love having ladies in my training because I tell them this. Ladies, if you're listening out here, you're 10 times better behavior profiler than men will ever be. Okay. You're much more attentive. We say it kind of joking, but it's not a joke. You're much more attuned to nonverbal language. And you ask women, hey, what age were you when you got the talk from mom about other guys, about looking out for creeps? Very young. Guys, we're just kind of bumbly. We're just kind of running around, bumping into stuff. But women from a very young age get taught that. So they're much more observant further. But what also happens, especially in Western societies, is women are kind of conditioned to not be rude. You don't want to be the B word, right? You don't want to be rude. You don't want to be seen as rude. So they get into those situations where I don't want to, appear like I'm a jerk or something's going on. So they put themselves in those situations. So remember, priority one is your safety. If it looks rude or someone's offended, guess what? That's their problem. I don't know them. You're never going to see them anymore. And at the end of the day, man, that's your barrel of monkeys to deal with. But I'm going to keep myself safe. Again, going back to Gavin DeBecker, the Gift of Fear has tons of those case studies in there, and they're sad, but you can learn from them. And everyone's like, oh, Gift of Fear. Everyone's wife and mother and every woman in your life should read this book. Everyone should read that book. Male, female, kids, adults, great place to learn.
It's a brilliant book, and again, the guy's name's Gavin, so he's got to be cool. So, but yeah, I mean, I will give credit to Thomas Pecora, who told me that story, because I remember him telling me about that and thinking what a brilliant way to put it. So I don't want to take the credit for his story, but yeah, going back to what you're saying, and even as men, we sometimes do it, but it is something that, like you say, society kind of dictates not to be rude. Well, as you mentioned, I'll be rude. I don't care. But at least I'll be alive or unharmed, if that's the case. And when it comes down to this kind of thing, no matter where you are, whether you're in a hotel, on a plane, anywhere at all, don't be worried about trampling over somebody's dinner or bags or coats or whatever to get out to stay alive, because you know what, they're material things and I don't care about any of them. What I care about is my life, my kids' life, and anybody else's life I can save to get out of there on the way. You know, so if I've trod on your bag, sue me.
Yeah, God forbid you're in front of me and my family.
Exactly.
It's not gonna work
Yeah.
out for you then. I'll apologize later when it's all over. I'm like, hey, sorry about that. Sorry, not
Um,
sorry. You know, but
Yeah. So, Georgina, I need to take a class like this. I do feel pretty good at picking up on feelings. It has taken me years to stop worrying about offending somebody. Yeah. Well, Georgina, I'm not sure where you are, but I mean, by all means, get in touch with Yousef, because he's got these classes globally, with highly trained guys who are teaching this stuff. You know, so I mean, by all means. In fact, that brings me, Yousef, to do you have a website that you can direct people to? What's the best place for people to go to be able to find you?
yeah, sure. You can just throw my name, Yousef Badou, right? How it is right there in Google, and it'll bring up everything. I'm kind of unique in that kind of standpoint. But if you can go to my website, and I'll send you links, Gavin, or I can put it in a chat. It's www.emergencedisrupt.com. It's kind of long, but you can also go on YouTube, find my channel on YouTube, find me on Instagram. I'm definitely doing a lot more heavier on YouTube this year. I kind of used to hang out on
Yeah.
Instagram. I'm still there, but I want more informational stuff. So go ahead, click on that YouTube channel, just put in Yousef Badou Emergence. You'll see me pop up and go through some of the videos on there, and they will definitely give you a good basis of how, there's definitely a curriculum behind this.
Mhm.
And if I can build in 5 seconds, 10 seconds, 30 seconds before that bang event happens, that's a good day in my book. So that's a great resource on that YouTube channel to get you started. And I'll be posting more on there too.
Yeah, I mean, we've covered a few things in the 30, 40 minutes that we've done so far. And it's impossible to kind of train somebody in situational awareness within that time remotely over the internet. But what we've given you these few tips. And if you like what you've seen in this very short YouTube video so far, then the training is definitely for you. You will love it. So, very quickly, Georgina's in Utah. Have you got somebody there?
I just got back from Utah 2 weeks
How
ago.
about that?
I was just in Provo, Utah for Fieldcraft Survival and Mike Glover. I trained about 25 of his people,
Oh,
and we
wow.
did some good stuff. So, Georgina, I'm sorry, I just missed you. I literally was just in Provo.
Oh, wow, how about that? But still get in touch anyway, and definitely check out Yousef's YouTube channel. If you're new here, please click the like and subscribe, and at the same time, please go over to Yousef Badou Emergence. Get over there, have a look at that, and definitely subscribe to his channel too. Oh man, I live 5 minutes from Provo. How about that?
I was literally drove back on Sunday.
Oh, wow. Well, I mean, again, like I can't recommend the training enough. So it's worth traveling if you have to, because like I said, I've seen some of it for myself firsthand, and it's absolutely brilliant. So, yeah, get onto the website and have a little look. So, is there anything, Yousef, before we're coming up to the hour? We've got about 10 minutes left. Is there anything that I could probably missed that you feel maybe we should cover, or do you think we've kind of
you
covered
nailed a
good
bunch. I mean, obviously, there's a lot more to it. We've just get the tip of the spear. But
thing?
within 45 minutes here, Gavin, I think you've touched on absolutely great subjects to get people started, to get people thinking about it.
Yeah.
It's not rocket science, but
Hmm.
once someone shows it to you and you're going, oh, okay, that kind of makes sense.
Hmm.
So for your listeners out there, take what you learned here, go watch some YouTube videos, go take Gavin's training and utilize Allentown and play little games that Gavin mentioned with your family, little
Yeah.
innocuous games. I like to do one where you don't even have to leave your house to do this one. Find some reality TV show, like, I don't know, like the Housewives of Borneo or whatever's on, something that's relatively reality, preferably an episode you haven't watched yet. Play it with your spouse, play the thing and turn the volume all the way down and try to figure out what's going on. You're not going to get 100% of the conversation, but you'll get 60, 70, 80% just based off nonverbal communication. The one bullet point I like people to understand is everyone thinks we communicate with our words. I mean, we do, but depending on what literature you read, 60 to 65%, some people even say 70% of communication is done non-verbally. So
Yeah.
if you hit the I believe button on that, if you believe that, how much are you paying attention to on a given day? What are you paying attention happening around you? What are you giving off to the world? That's a whole other side of the coin too, is what are you showing the world out there? So Take what we talked about today and become a student of that human behavior. Try to be deliberate with your observations.
Oh, for sure, definitely. I mean, when I talk about body language, I mean there are these huge percentages out there that you know that people say that, like you say, the non-verbal communication, and it can vary depending on who you ask and when the study was done and whatever else. But let's just go with that 70-30 you mentioned. And people say, well, how important is body language? And I say, okay, imagine you've got a book. Now, if I rip out 70% of the pages,
Good
right?
analogy.
Now, how important? Exactly. by all means, yeah. Or even if it was an ebook and 70% of the words randomly were missing, how important is that information to the book, to the story, whether it's fiction, non-fiction, whatever? You know, this shows the importance of body language and non-verbal communication and what people are saying, you know, without the spoken word. So hope that helps for some people at least.
That's well done, Gam. Totally stealing that, my friend.
Yeah, by all means, please do. Because at the end of the day, we're all in this to help people. You know, that's all I want to do is kind of get people to, like you say, the more people that become aware of awareness, the better it's going to be for everybody. We're all going to be a little bit safer. And I love that idea you mentioned about playing games in the home. I actually, hands down, I swear, when my wife and I got together, I redecorated the kitchen once, and she came in and sat in the kitchen. She didn't even notice. Her situational awareness was that bad. I mean, it was beyond dreadful. You know, I literally redecorated the entire room, and she came in. She wasn't aware of the fact that I did it. So
I'm the opposite. My wife busts me all the time. She's like, "Did you see that? Did you see this?" She's like, "Hey, Mr. Situational Awareness over there." You know.
Oh yeah.
She grabs me all the time. I'm like, "Okay, good catch, good catch."
Oh yeah, I can believe that, and of course, I mean, you know, this is one of these things that, you know, when you put yourself in the kind of, I'm the Mr. Situational Awareness guy, you do get tested by everybody, don't you?
Exactly. Yeah, you're the king of the ring, so everyone wants a shot. Yeah.
Exactly. But yeah, I mean, her situational awareness has improved now. I mean, we were in Hollywood a few years ago. We're walking down the strip, and like kind of, oh yeah, and of course, there are people out there. You can see them if you know what you're looking for. They've obviously practiced it enough, and they're trying to slip their hand into her purse and grab bits and pieces. And she's aware. She's noticed. She's turned around and said, "Don't even think about it." You know, and she spotted things on some occasions even before me, and that was just through being with me, you know, over the years and how it's improved. So, you know, it just goes to show that anybody, even somebody who was that oblivious to the world around them when we first got together, over time has now become so sharp that even the pocket pickers in Hollywood, you know, weren't able to sneak up on her. So 100%. Definitely a skill worth learning.
Absolutely.
Brilliant. Right then, Yousef, thank you very much. We are a little bit short of the hour. I don't want to try and go over because I know obviously time is valuable. But thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for all the valuable information that you shared with the crowd. By all means, share this onto your YouTube channel as well, so that, you know, people can watch it there. And hopefully you might get one or two calls from some people over. So the crowd's gone up a little bit now that might book training or at least share this with their friends to make them a little bit aware. But will you come back again and do another one for us?
100%. I was just going to say it, Gavin. Like, I'll tell you, normally when I'm talking about this, I'm just blasting people because they might not have, you know, the situational awareness curriculum background. But being on here with you, where we can go back and forth, where I'm not just getting the glazed look over like, oh, you know, where we can bounce off each other is fantastic. Not only for you and me, I'm having a great time, but also for our listeners. They hear two sides of the same coin, basically. Hey, have you done this? Have you played this game? So everyone, you know, everyone's being lifted up by this. So absolutely, I think we'd definitely have more time to do 2 or 3 more episodes of this going down the rabbit hole.
Well, maybe, you know, for part 2, I could come onto your channel, and then part 3, come back here and, you know, get people that kind of onto both, so they get the benefit and the best of both worlds. So
absolutely.
Thank you to everybody for joining us. I didn't shout everybody's name out tonight, but thank you to everybody who are watching, everybody who will be watching, and we'll see you again soon. Yousef, thanks once again, my friend.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Gavin. Appreciate it.